Forget the countdown to 2026. For Lewis Hamilton, the clock started ticking the second he walked into Maranello. This wasn't some casual career pivot. It was a plunge into Ferrari's maze, a place where heritage is tangled with hierarchy, where the silence between radio calls can carry more weight than the words themselves, and where every tweak, every approval, and every no hides a deeper story. The paddock has always whispered about the politics here. Now those whispers are turning into something louder, and Hamilton is right in the middle of it. They say the big shake-up arrives with the 2026 regulation overhaul. But for Hamilton, the adaptation battle began on day one. After living his entire F1 life in the comfort of Mercedes power units, he found himself in a completely different ecosystem. New machinery, new operating systems, unfamiliar engineers feeding him data, and a culture that moves at its own pace. Ferrari boss Fred Vasseur has openly admitted what many suspected all along. Both he and Hamilton underestimated how steep the climb would be. For a driver who thrives on laser-sharp accuracy and unshakable trust in the team, the early months have been nothing short of turbulence. And according to Jacques Villeneuve, the real head-to-head with Charles Leclerc won't truly begin until the rules reset wipes Ferrari's technical safety net clean. Until then, every race weekend is less about points and more about subtle power plays. A carefully chosen word in a debrief, a setup request granted or denied, even a single glance at the telemetry that says more than the official report. Hamilton knows these moments aren't filler. They're the foundations for the day when excuses disappear and the gloves come off. Publicly, Ferrari sells 2026 as a fresh start. Privately, the contest for influence is already underway. The SF25 is rooted in design decisions made for Leclerc's driving DNA. Its braking characteristics, balance, and aerodynamic principles still echoing his preferred style. Vasseur has labelled 2025 a transition year, but in Formula One, transition seasons can quietly determine who commands the design table when a clean sheet of paper finally arrives. And that is where Hamilton's true fight lies. Hungary made the undercurrents visible. Hamilton's frustration boiled over, out in Q2, finishing P12, while Leclerc took pole and added to his 5-podium tally this season. On the surface, it's just a scoreboard gap. Beneath, it's a difference in sway inside the team. Villeneuve has described Ferrari's environment as erratic. Communication zigzags, decisions arrive late, and radio calls sometimes lack clarity altogether. For Hamilton, each missed or muddled message is more than an annoyance. It's ammunition. Every tactical misstep reinforces his argument that Ferrari's future should be shaped around his methodology when the 2026 car is born. He's not passively waiting for that moment. He's engineering it. Hungary wasn't just a rough weekend, it was a strategic inflection point. Calling himself useless after qualifying wasn't self-pity, it was calculated self-pressure. In the paddock, people know those soundbites travel fast, and in Ferrari's internal politics, perception often sets the tone for development. If the narrative solidifies that the current car doesn't suit him, the design focus for 2026 shifts in his direction. Leclerc's side, of course, has its own stake in this. The car's present setup works for his aggressive, rotation-heavy style, and a wholesale change could blunt that advantage. That's why even small Hamilton-driven adjustments, tweaking brake migration maps, refining throttle curves, are viewed not as technical tweaks, but as political chess moves. The radio issue plays into that as well. Villeneuve hinted at it, but Hamilton sees it clearly. Every vague or delayed response in a race is another data point in his case for tighter, more Hamilton-centric communication. This is the long game, and he's committed to playing it, one small win at a time, until the 2026 reset removes all filters. Inside the team, the quiet split is becoming visible. Engineers talk about two Ferraris, one tuned to Leclerc's instincts, the other slowly bending toward Hamilton's precision-first philosophy. It's not an open war, but the fault lines are clear. Separate simulator configurations, setup notes stored under different protocols, even a noticeable shift in tone during briefings depending on whose garage you're in. Vasseur keeps insisting unity is the ultimate aim, yet certain calls seem to lean ever so slightly toward Hamilton's vision. After the controversial underfuel strategy at Spa, his technical requests began jumping the normal chain of approval, landing directly on decision-makers' desks. That's not coincidence. That's influence. And in F1, influence is the currency that shapes the next generation of cars. Leclerc still holds the results advantage, 5 podiums to Hamilton's 0. But in Hamilton's mind, those trophies mean less than control over the 2026 concept. Because when the reset comes, Ferrari will show, through design, which driver they truly back. And if Hamilton succeeds in becoming the loudest voice in that room, the next machine could finally be one molded perfectly to him. When that day comes, the question won't simply be who's faster, it'll be who's in control. Ferrari's so-called confusion, as former champion David Coulthard and others have described, is structural. Every late call, every muddled strategy note, every meeting where priorities shift without warning fits into a larger pattern. This is a team caught between tradition and transformation. Hamilton's been here before. At Mercedes, clear communication was a weapon. At Ferrari, the lack of it is a weakness, one he's already started turning into leverage. When strategy decisions arrive too late to change the outcome, Lewis doesn't explode over the radio. He files it away, turns it into a documented case study, and brings it up in the one place it matters: the debrief. Not to complain about a single lost race, but to prove that the system itself needs to be rebuilt around his way of working. That's why 2026 looms so large. When the chassis and engine regulations reset, there will be nowhere to hide behind inherited design. The leadership will have to make a choice. Which driver's style becomes the blueprint for Ferrari's future? Until that moment comes, Hamilton is building his argument brick by brick. A telemetry overlay that favours his inputs here, a setup change that delivers cleaner laps there, until the evidence is impossible to ignore. When that reset arrives, he doesn't just want a car capable of fighting Charles Leclerc, he wants a machine that erases Leclerc's advantage entirely. Behind closed doors, engineers already speak about 2026 in hushed tones, like it's a classified project. Everyone knows it will be a clean sheet, no carryover aero philosophy, no recycled setups. And that terrifies the side of the garage aligned with Leclerc. If Hamilton's driving DNA becomes the baseline, then Charles will be the one forced to adapt. Lewis isn't trying to overhaul Ferrari overnight. He's too strategic for that. Instead, he's introducing small, calculated tweaks that look harmless in isolation. Changes to steering feel, brake modulation, torque mapping. But together they define the personality of the next car. It's a slow burn, but it's deliberate. Villeneuve's warning that the real test arrives in 2026 isn't about who's quicker in qualifying, it's about who survives politically. And Hamilton, with his patience and precision, is positioning himself not just as Ferrari's best hope for a championship, but as the driver who will set the terms for their next era. In the paddock, rivals are noticing subtle differences in Hamilton's Ferrari. On track, it doesn't just look different, it behaves differently in the data. Smoother tyre wear, more stable throttle traces, fewer mid-corner corrections. Those aren't accidents, they're the fingerprints of a driver shaping the car from within. Every race that validates those changes adds another layer to his case. Leclerc still holds the upper hand in the standings, but inside Ferrari, influence is starting to outweigh points. The moment the new regulations hit, the driver who steered the technical vision will have the real advantage. Hamilton's camp knows it, which is why every simulator run and technical meeting is treated like a campaign event. To Lewis, Villeneuve's test isn't a warning, it's an opportunity, because when it comes, it won't be on level ground. The fight will be in a car he's spent 2 years quietly sculpting. If he wins then, it won't just be against Leclerc, it will be against Ferrari's own outdated self. The public might see a debut year full of setbacks. Insiders see something else, a systematic takeover. Hamilton isn't in Maranello just to blend in, he's there to reprogram it. Every pit wall blunder, every missed call, every uneven setup is another reason why his voice should lead. By the time 2026 arrives, Leclerc will climb into a car defined by 2 years of Hamilton's quiet influence. Brake balance shifts, aerodynamic choices, strategy playbooks, and the points table from 2025 will be irrelevant. Hamilton isn't racing for 2025. He's racing through it. Every Grand Prix is a step in reshaping the Scuderia. And when the reset comes, the politics will fall away. The gloves will come off and the fight will be decided in its purest form. The real question isn't whether Lewis Hamilton will be ready, it's whether Ferrari will be ready for him.